History is full of legends, heroes, and larger-than-life figures, but what if some of the most famous stories you know are actually myths? Did Napoleon really have a complex about his height? Was Vikings' horned helmets a real thing? Get ready to separate fact from fiction as we uncover the biggest myths about historical figures and the surprising truth behind them. We've all heard the term Napoleon complex, the idea that short people are overly aggressive to compensate for their height. But here's the truth. Napoleon wasn't actually short. His recorded height was 5 feet 2 inches in French feet, which translates to about 5 feet 6 inches, or 1.68 meters in modern measurements, completely average for his time. So why do we think he was tiny? British propaganda painted him as a small, angry man to ridicule him. The truth? He was a military genius, not an insecure short guy. Picture a Viking warrior. Chances are he's wearing a horned helmet. But here's the shocker. Vikings never actually wore them in battle. The horned helmet myth started in the 19th century thanks to artists romanticizing Viking culture. Real Viking helmets were practical, simple, and designed for combat, not decoration. So where did the horns come from? They were mostly used in religious ceremonies, not for raiding villages. Cleopatra, one of history's most famous queens, is often seen as the ultimate Egyptian ruler. But did you know she wasn't actually Egyptian? Cleopatra was Greek, a descendant of Ptolemy I, a general of Alexander the Great who took over Egypt after his empire split. She was one of the few rulers in her dynasty to even speak Egyptian. But her lineage? 100% Greek Macedonian. So while she ruled Egypt, her heritage and culture were far from what most people assume. Medieval torture devices were brutal, but the Iron Maiden, the spiked coffin used to impale victims, was likely a hoax. There's no solid evidence that it was ever used in the Middle Ages. In fact, most Iron Maidens were created in the 18th and 19th centuries, long after the medieval period, to attract tourists to museums. So, while it's a terrifying idea, it's probably more fiction than fact. History is filled with misconceptions and exaggerations. Napoleon wasn't short, Vikings ditched the horns, Cleopatra wasn't Egyptian, and the Iron Maiden? Just a scary story. But these aren't the only myths in history. What if I told you some of history's greatest discoveries were actually accidents?